Hello, dear students. Today I'm going to explain about common test techniques. What are they? And just one by one, we will say each type of technique. I'll provide you some definitions and others. So let's start. Okay, first of all, look at the lesson outline. So, in the first step, we're going to learn about what are test techniques. Then, one by one, we will speak about multiple choice items, then yes, no, true, false items, short answer items, and etc. Okay. Quite simply, test techniques are means of eliciting behavior from candidates that will tell us about their language abilities. What we need are techniques that listen, it can will elicit behavior which is a reliable and valid indicator of the ability in which we are interested. And it will elicit behavior which can be reliably scored. And they are also as economical of time and effort as possible. And it will have a beneficial backwash effect where this is relevant. Okay, here we've got the next page. So, multiple choice. You know what? Actually, you have been doing this kind of test when you were applicant and when you are preparing your IELTS and CFR exams. Actually, you know it. But you know what? The confusing thing is most students are confused that when I ask about them, what do you think? What kind of things can be considered as test techniques? They don't know. But if I ask them about test types, they say we've got multiple choice test type or etc. No, guys, there is difference between test technique and test types. Test types are another thing. For example, we've got placement tests, formative tests, assessment. I mean or a diagnostic test and etc. They are actually the types of tests, but techniques are something used inside of these test types. The first one is multiple choice. You know what is multiple choice items, yeah? Okay. Multiple choice items take many forms, but their basic structure is as follows. Look at the slide. Okay, the technique tests only recognition knowledge. If there is a lack of fit between at least some candidates' productive and receptive skills, then performance on a multiple choice test may give a quite inaccurate picture of those candidates' ability. A multiple choice test grammar test score, for example, may be a poor indicator of someone's ability to use grammatical structures. Okay, you have seen multiple choice question when you were preparing your listening and reading skill, yeah, for CFR or IELTS, which is considered as proficiency test, right? Okay, next. Guessing may have a considerable but unknowable effect on test scores. Okay, look. The chance of guessing the correct answer in the three option multiple choice item is 1 in the year or roughly 33%. On average, we would expect someone to score 33 on a 100 item test purely by guesswork. We would expect some people to score fewer than that by guessing, others to score more. The trouble is here that we can never know what part of any particular individual score has come about through guessing. Attempts are sometimes made to estimate the contribution of guessing by assuming that all incorrect responses are the result of guessing, and by further assuming that the individual has had average luck in guessing. So, guys, in every test technique, there are advantages and disadvantages. Think for a while and try to guess what kind of pluses and minuses this multiple choice tests have. Okay, next. The technique severely restricts what can be tested. The basic problem here is that multiple choice items require distractors, and distractors are not always available. In a grammar test, it may not be possible to find 3 or 4 plausible alternatives to the correct structure. The result is often that the comment of what may be an important structure is simply not tested. Okay. It is very difficult to write successful items. You know what the further problem is with multiple choice? Even where items are possible, good ones are extremely difficult to write. Professional test writers sometimes they think to have write many more multiple choice items than they actually need for a test, and it is only after statistical analysis of performance on the items that they can recognize the ones that are usable. Okay, next. Uh, the next test technique is yes, no, and true, false. That you have faced with in reading section, and the most confusing one, I guess, when it comes to reading. So, overall the structure of yes and no, true, false items, right? These items in which the test taker has, wait a minute, they have to choose between yes and no or between true and false. They are effectively multiple choice items with only two options. You will have only two options, whether yes or no. Sometimes there is a third one, which is called not given, right? Okay, the obvious weakness of such items is that the test taker has a 50% chance of choosing the correct response by chance alone. In my view, there is no place for items of this kind in a formal test, although they may well have a use in assessment where the accuracy of the result is not critical. True-false items are sometimes modified by requiring test takers to give a reason for their choice. Okay, next type test technique, it is short answer items. These items in which test taker has to provide short answer are common, particularly in listening and reading tests. Sometimes it's common in speaking, for example, where you can be asked some questions and you will just give answer or like. For examples, look at the examples here. What does it in the last sentence refer to? Okay, let's continue. Uh, we stopped here. So we were talking about some examples. The second example, how old was Hannibal when he started eating human beings? This kind of things. Okay, next. Here we can see some advantages over multiple choice of that. The advantage of short answer question type. The guessing will contribute less to test scores. The technique is not restricted by the need for distractors, and cheating is likely to be more difficult. And though grade key must still be taken, items should be easier to write. The disadvantages, responses may take longer, and so it can reduce a possible number of items. The test taker has to produce language in order to respond, and scoring may take longer. Scoring may be invalid or unreliable if judgment is required. The next technique is gap filling. Gap filling is also very popular in reading section and listening section. Items in which test takers have to fill a gap with a word are also common. Gap filling items for reading or listening work best if the missing words are to be found in the text or are straightforward. High frequency words which not be present spelling problems, but it doesn't work well where the grammatical element to be tested in discontinuous and so needs more than one gap. Okay, so that was all about test techniques. If you have some extra information about test techniques which you have faced when you have been improving your writing, speaking, reading, and listening skills, you're welcome to text me about it. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.